The Boltzmann Brain Paradox is a mind-bending question about probability, entropy, and the nature of existence. Imagine a universe that is infinitely large and exists for an inconceivably long time. In such a scenario, random quantum fluctuations, tiny, spontaneous changes in energy, can, in theory, create temporary, self-aware entities out of chaos, known as Boltzmann brains. These brains would be fully formed, complete with false memories and perceptions, momentarily flickering into existence before dissolving back into nothingness. But here's the paradox. In a truly infinite or near-eternal universe, shouldn't Boltzmann brains be far more common than real, evolved beings like us? If entropy is always increasing and randomness dominates in the long run, forming a fully structured universe like ours should be exponentially less likely than just forming a single conscious mind by chance. If so, what's more likely? That you are a human in a long-lived, structured cosmos, or that you are actually a Boltzmann brain, a fleeting hallucination that will disappear in an instant? This idea stems from Ludwig Boltzmann's work on entropy in the late 19th century. He proposed that the second law of thermodynamics, which states that systems move toward disorder over time, might be temporarily reversed in rare cases due to statistical fluctuations. If this principle applies to the entire universe, then brief islands of order, like stars, planets, and even intelligent beings, should occasionally arise. But the formation of an entire structured cosmos with billions of galaxies requires an astronomically rare fluctuation, whereas a single conscious entity popping into existence should be vastly more probable. However, the Boltzmann Brain Paradox suggests something unsettling. If the universe really works this way, then the majority of sentient beings should be Boltzmann brains, not evolved life forms. If true, this would challenge everything we believe about reality. Are we genuinely experiencing a continuous, coherent history? Or are we just fluctuations in a sea of chaos, doomed to vanish before we can even finish this thought? To counter this paradox, physicists argue that a well-behaved universe must suppress the formation of Boltzmann brains. Otherwise, it leads to absurd conclusions. Some propose that cosmic inflation, quantum mechanics, or unknown physical principles prevent such fluctuations on macroscopic scales. Others suggest that our ordered universe is the real deal, and the probability of Boltzmann brains arising is misunderstood. So, what do you think? Are we part of a long-evolved universe, or just momentary blips of consciousness in an infinite sea of randomness? If the Boltzmann Brain Paradox were true, would we ever even know? The Boltzmann Brain Paradox arises from statistical mechanics and cosmology, suggesting that in an infinitely old universe, random quantum fluctuations could occasionally produce self-aware entities, Boltzmann brains, that momentarily form, perceive a universe, and then dissolve. This scenario contradicts the assumption that we live in a typical, orderly universe, since a fully developed cosmos is vastly less probable than a single conscious brain. The paradox challenges our assumptions about cosmic evolution and the reliability of human perception. If the universe existed for an infinite amount of time, then, statistically, Boltzmann brains should vastly outnumber real human observers, implying that we are likely disembodied minds experiencing false realities. It's like finding yourself inside a dream but realizing that it is far more likely you are a fleeting hallucination than an actual person living in an organized world. According to the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, disorder, should always increase, making a chaotic, high-entropy universe vastly more probable than a highly ordered one. If entropy fluctuations are the only mechanism for generating conscious observers, then brief, disordered Boltzmann brains should occur far more frequently than entire low-entropy galaxies or planets. This contradicts our everyday experience of a structured cosmos with consistent physical laws. If the early universe was just a fluctuation from a higher entropy state, then a smaller fluctuation that simply creates a single conscious experience without an entire ordered universe should be exponentially more probable. It's like throwing a deck of cards in the air and expecting them to land perfectly sorted. It's vastly more probable that a single card accidentally forms a word than that the entire deck arranges into a coherent book. Quantum field theory suggests that in an eternally inflating universe, random fluctuations continuously produce particles and even large-scale structures. The paradox emerges because, given infinite time, a conscious entity forming momentarily from quantum noise should, statistically, happen more often than the gradual evolution of biological intelligence. This leads to the unsettling implication that our memories and experiences could be fabrications of random quantum fluctuations rather than a product of a stable universe. In some interpretations of quantum mechanics, the fleeting nature of virtual particles suggests that entire conscious experiences could emerge temporarily before vanishing, raising the possibility that any given observer is a temporary fluctuation rather than part of a continuous reality. It's like walking into a movie theater and suddenly realizing that the entire film, including your role in it, was spontaneously generated a moment ago and will disappear just as quickly. One proposed solution to the paradox is that the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate due to cosmic inflation, making it difficult for Boltzmann brains to form in large numbers. In an inflationary scenario, ordered regions of space are continuously created, making real observers who evolve through biological processes far more common than random fluctuations. This would mean that our reality is more likely the product of structured cosmic evolution rather than a statistical anomaly. If cosmic inflation continues indefinitely, it could ensure that structured, low-entropy observers dominate over fluctuating Boltzmann brains by outpacing their formation rates. It's like a factory constantly producing cars with careful engineering, ensuring that well-built cars vastly outnumber those that randomly assemble from scattered parts. The Anthropic principle suggests that we perceive a structured universe simply because only structured universes can support observers capable of asking these questions. If a vast majority of universes are inhospitable to life, then conscious beings will always find themselves in the rare regions where evolution and complexity can occur, making Boltzmann brains an irrelevant statistical outlier. This perspective suggests that our perception of order is not surprising, but rather a necessary condition for self-awareness. Even if Boltzmann brains vastly outnumber us, they do not persist long enough to ponder their own existence, whereas evolved beings in stable universes do. It's like being born on a rare, habitable island in an ocean of lifeless water. You only question your location because it's the only place where life is possible. Some physicists argue that if the fundamental laws of physics are time-symmetric, i.e. reversible at the microscopic level, then our notion of entropy and randomness must be reconsidered. If time can run in both directions, then our universe might not be a single evolving system, but a statistical fluctuation within a broader multiverse. This idea implies that conscious observers could be emergent from timeless quantum states rather than arising due to random entropy changes. Some models suggest that the universe's Big Bang was not the beginning, but a bounce from a previous collapsing universe, avoiding the problem of statistical improbability. It's like watching a movie and discovering that the ending was already embedded in the first frame. What seems like evolution might be a cyclical or pre-existing structure. One resolution to the Boltzmann Brain Paradox is the idea that consciousness is not an accidental fluctuation, but a deliberately programmed structure within a simulation. If advanced civilizations create artificial minds or digital universes, then most conscious observers might exist in simulations rather than as biological entities. This would suggest that our experience is neither a random quantum fluctuation nor a natural evolutionary process, but an engineered reality. Nick Bostrom's simulation hypothesis proposes that simulated minds could vastly outnumber natural minds, making it more likely that we are artificial entities rather than physical beings. It's like realizing that the world you live in is more like a computer game than a natural landscape. Every experience is generated by an underlying computational system. If conscious experiences do not require biological substrates and can emerge from random quantum configurations, then subjective awareness might be more common than physical observers. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that perception itself could be a fundamental property of the universe rather than a product of neurons. This would mean that awareness exists as a fluctuating property of reality, making structured human experience an exception rather than a rule. Quantum brain theories suggest that consciousness could be a form of quantum computation, which might arise under extreme physical conditions, even in fluctuating systems. It's like finding out that thought itself is a natural feature of the universe, like gravity, and not something that requires a structured brain to exist. Some physicists argue that there are fundamental laws, such as quantum gravity effects or information theoretic constraints, that prevent fully formed Boltzmann brains from occurring. If so, this would mean that the paradox is based on incorrect assumptions about entropy and fluctuations. This remains speculative, but if true, it would provide a natural safeguard against paradoxical conclusions. Some proposals suggest that vacuum energy fluctuations cannot create stable, self-aware systems because of quantum decoherence effects that prevent them from persisting long enough to perceive a reality. It's like trying to randomly assemble a conscious robot from swirling dust particles. Physical laws might make such an event impossible, no matter how long you wait.